Hello. If you want to support us here at The Contemporary Gentleman, you can buy into our Spy series, links below. And depending on when this was recorded, we may or may not have an Instagram and or Patreon. If we do, links are below. Cheers. Hello everyone, James Donaldson here, and I'm bringing you a video on the Hayden X300A/B. For the gentleman's disclosure, this is about our thoughts and kind of evaluation of the holster. And what is it? Well, it's a holster for suppressed pistols, and we like it. Stay tuned. So getting into the meat and potatoes, there is a version of this that does support a mod light, pistol light. For what it's worth, I didn't see that they had a TLR focused one. I think it's just because it's a little too short for what they're doing here. Anyway, continuing on. So as far as my kind of standard criteria for suppressed pistol holsters, we have ergonomics. The draw is easy and smooth, etc. No problems. Now to replace, mostly smooth. Rarely does it hang up. Every once in a while, it kind of seems to, but honestly, it's been par for the course for all the suppressed pistol holsters. Maybe a hair less on the T-Rex arms, maybe, but doesn't mean you shouldn't buy the T-Rex arms over this. We'll get into that. Now, static without a weapon, having it hang at my side, no problems, which is kind of on par with most of the rest of them, but it does hold the weapon out, so the hot suppressor isn't really going to run into my leg. I'd have to be really in some kind of austere position for that to happen. So that is a very nice feature as well. I will kind of add to that, you can move and do some of that stuff, or a lot of that stuff, and it isn't going to hit you. You have to be really contorted for it to be hitting you. So just to kind of clear that up. Now retention, solid retention when it's moving in it. I had a couple slip-ups, I feel like, here and there. Like you can kind of make it happen. And just to be clear, none of these suppressed pistol holsters are like, you should be doing jiu-jitsu hardcore with them on there. You're probably going to lose your gun with all of them except for the Cry, which has, as much as I like it, plenty of drawbacks as well. It's one of my least used ones, even though I think it's really great. Again, for $20, you may as well have it on you. But there's a video on that. Go watch that. Back to the Hayden. Now, weapon options. This is probably the most versatile out of all the suppressed pistol holsters I have, especially when it comes to light and gun combination. This is very similar to the Armordillo X4V2. The difference is that the X4V2, you have to have the A version of the X300, and it really, like most of the suppressed pistol holsters, really doesn't work that well with the Vampire version. This, again, it doesn't. No holster works as well with the Vampire as it does with the other two variants, the U and the T, the Ultra and the Turbo. They just don't. This does probably the best working with the Vampire, which is important when I'm running suppressed at the range, which we'll talk about. Now, this will also take long slide guns, which the Armordillo will too, and even, I eventually found out, the Ragnarok will. So, long slide guns, that's big. It's very Glock 40 friendly, which, you know, teardrop isn't going to be relevant very soon. But, of course, you can put any optic, you can put a fucking telescope on it, whatever you want, and it's going to work right in there. So, getting to mounting options. I have it set up for QLS. It does QLS. I believe it does, you can do RTI, either way, and then belt. So, good variety. It does have, you can do tech lock. Now, you don't get the mounting from them, but they will give you the hardware, which is kind of neat and helpful. Going back to suppressor options, really any. The only reason you wouldn't run an Osprey in here is because you're running a Glock. Osprey and Glock and a suppressed pistol holster don't really play well nice together unless the Osprey's upside down. So anyway, very good versatility, especially when it comes to the lights. So very good reason to buy it for that. Now getting into caveats and variables, like I mentioned, no Glock with an Osprey on it. Now for your choices of lights, you can do the A or B version of the X300U, the X300T, and the X300V. That is nice. So it's one of the reasons it's kind of been my go-to for suppressed pistols, and sometimes even just a pistol without a suppressor. It's just the fact that it indexes off the light means that, for instance, the upcoming Combat 45 handgun evaluation I'm going to be doing, I'm pretty much going to be using this holster because I don't have to mold anything like the T-Rex Arms holster, and it will just index off the X300, and just about every one of those pistols is going to be able to have an X300 on it, so I'm going to run it in there. Will be interesting to see if the Mark 23 fits on this, but I have no doubt that the rest of the pistols will fit. So, light choices, you pretty much the biggest variety out of all the suppressed pistol holsters. Now I don't mean to reiterate some of what I already said, but big advantage is just the versatility. Pretty much works with literally everything as long as you got an X300 on it. And of course to include no suppressor at all. The one I put this to most, or almost kind of tied for first, is the T-Rex Arms Ragnarok SD in this. But over the Ragnarok SD, which has to be molded to the suppressor on the gun, which I have a video on, you can check that out. But the suppressor is irrelevant to this. Whereas theirs requires a suppressor to hold the gun in. Maybe you get slightly better retention. I don't think it's that much better, but this is, again, well designed and more forgiving. Now, really directly comparing this to Armordillo X4V2, again, video on that, they're very similar in terms of just how they just index off the light. Now the difference is this is a dedicated outside the waist belt holster, whereas the Armordillo you can do inside or outside, meaning if someone has a carry pistol with an X300 on it, they can use it as an inside the waist belt holster. So it has a little more versatility in that aspect, but with the materials they used, I just feel like I'm gonna break it. And this I don't feel like. It's thick, hard Kydex, and it just bounces right back. The Armordillo, maybe I'll test it, but I feel like I could run over this with a truck and it'd be okay. And either way, less damage than if I ran over the Armordillo with a truck. I feel like I would break it. Sometimes I feel like I could break it just bending it. Again, it's really plastic. This is Kydex, so two different materials. And again, this is more versatile. You can use the screw-on B variants of the X300s, whereas the other one has to be the A only. So closing this up, didn't need to be a long review. I love the QLS compatibility. I love the retention and solid feel. I love the draw and replace capability, as well as the versatility. As I said, this is kind of tied for first place with my T-Rex Arms. Kind of depends on what I'm doing. But usually this just sits in my gun bag. The T-Rex Arms one does not. It just, again, has that versatility. Now, if I was some like Tier 1 operator, I may do a little more testing between the two to see just certain movements and things like that. Maybe I get a little retention out of the T-Rex. But from what I've done, I'm not really noticing hardly a difference, if any. And this is just very simple to throw on at the range. Also because the QLS, and the T-Rex Arms is also QLS. You know, I can have this on my belt when I get to the range, throw this on, throw the gun in it, and be ready to rock. So, if you're looking through all my videos on suppressed pistol holsters, or just looking at suppressed pistol holsters in general, I would say this is the one to get. Now, if you have one gun, you're going to use, this is my gun, this is my suppressor, I'm not changing any of this shit, then you may consider the T-Rex Arms. But I don't know about over it. And the other thing is I haven't looked at pricing lately, they're probably close to the same. But if you have an array of guns, for instance, you're able to put an X300 on them, especially an A where you can click it off easily. This is a really great holster to have, even if you're not using a suppressor. But if you're just using a different guns and you go to the range and you want to have an A holster to throw them in, and you got 10 different guns and they can all take an X300 and you got one X300, and maybe even worth it to just buy one X300 to do this. Then you can put the X300 on that gun and you can holster it and then you can shoot. Don't even need a suppressor, no big deal. Again, where the T-Rex arms, you do require a suppressor. So I think I've laid out most of the differences at this point. This is, I would say tied for first place, even though I probably use it a little more than the Ragnarok SD. So, all in all, if you're considering this holster, I recommend it very much. If all the things I talked about as far as your criteria are met, I think you should be a confident buyer in this scenario. If it doesn't seem to meet all your criteria, maybe check out some of my other videos and see if one of the other ones does what you need. But I can tell you that the Standard Co Hayden X300A/B is a fantastic holster that works well whether you're running suppressed or not. This has been James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.